Hi, my name is Christine Crum, and I am your host for ICAN. ICAN is a show dedicated to providing information to anyone who needs help. Help with what? Help with getting answers on where to go to get help with drug misuse, helping veterans find where they can go to get help, homelessness, and more. Once a month on this channel, we will take an hour to discover just what is really going on in our community. We will have interviews of people who can help and people who need help. We will discover all the stats, figures, and truth or fiction about drug, alcohol, and cigarettes. This is a program for not just adults, but kids too. We are all a part of this community, and we are all in this together. Welcome to ICAN, because I can make a difference, and so can you.
Open our hearts, free every soul. The fear inside, you must let it go. Oh, that monster, before it conquers you. Yeah, we all have demons, we fight every day. You get knocked down, but the bell hasn't rang, so keep going. Just stay focused when life seems hopeless. Before life passes you by, you must, like a bird with broken wings always. You've gotta reach for the stars. It might seem far. Ooh, don't stop. You gotta try. Oh, 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 you gotta try. Never stop dreaming, even awake. Nothing can stop you from winning this race, so keep going. Just stay focused. Yeah, I am the tiger, I own the prize. Every storm is with the rainbow in the sky. You are golden. If no one else notices, don't stop, keep going. Before life passes you by, you must, like a bird with broken wings always. You gotta reach for the stars. It might seem far. Ooh, don't stop. You gotta try. Oh, 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 you gotta try. You gotta try. All you got to do is try. Oh, you gotta 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 try. You gotta try. All you got to do is try. You gotta try.
I think the biggest piece of advice I have for someone going through addiction or thinking about going to rehab is being honest with yourself. Don't be afraid to get help. I think that's the biggest stigma that we're trying to erase is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Welcome back to our second half of the show. I'd like to introduce you to Erin Rachwal. On February 14, 2021, she and her husband tragically lost their 19-year-old son Logan to fentanyl poisoning. He was a student at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Mrs. Rachwal said Logan took a pill which he thought was a 30-milligram oxy and it was laced with fentanyl. He died on Valentine's Day while on FaceTime right after taking it. He left behind an 18-year-old brother who wants to help spread awareness about the dangers of pills. Mrs. Rachwal is a licensed clinical therapist and is sharing Logan's story with others to help bring awareness to the dangers of fentanyl and so other parents will not have to know the loss of a child to fentanyl. Welcome, Mrs. Rachwal. Welcome back to our second half. We have Erin, how do you say your last name?
Rachwal.
Rachwal. Oh, that's easy. And can you tell us a little bit about your family?
I'm married to my husband, and we've been married about 23 and a half years.
Okay.
So we have one other son, Caden, and he's 18. And then we have Logan, who has passed, and he was 19. They were just about 14 months apart.
Okay.
So we live in Pewaukee, and we were just a normal family, doing everything we can to keep our kids, going down the right path. And when the kids were little, we grew up, teaching them all the things I think that the normal good families would do. We went on trips, vacations. We brought them up in our church, so they had a lot of guidance spiritually, a lot of extended family. The kids were both into baseball. We went camping. We were just that, that family. Yeah, we put, I think, everything we could aside for both of our kids, and we had a really hard time even conceiving. So from day one, I always say Logan was a tough kid because it took about 2.5 years to even have him. So he was kind of our little miracle boy.
Okay. Tell us, go into a little bit of background of Logan himself and how he came to where it ended up.
So he was a very anxious kid from day one. He was a very sweet, kind kid. He was the kid who would, help the special needs kids at his grade school or cry for an animal if something was wrong. So he was very soft. He was a very soft kid. Always struggled with friendships. He was sort of the kid left out at times, the one who would be coming home from the sleepover in the middle of the night. And so we knew at an early age that he was wrestling with anxiety. And he went through a few deaths around 4th grade, pretty significant deaths. A counselor he was already seeing had passed. And then a couple weeks later, his grandma, who was very, very important in his life, passed as well. So he went through some really tough things at that age. And so we were seeking help very early.
Okay.
And that went all the way up until, till Logan passed. We were always trying to get him help. As he grew into his young teen years, we had moved houses to try to get him a fresh start because he was being bullied. And he was doing okay. But again, always a kid who just wrestled with things.
Why was he being bullied? What was he being bullied for?
I think he was just one of those kids who he wouldn't.
Bit different?
And socially, and I think he would not fight back.
Okay.
So he was one of those kids where you could go up and say something to him or say something mean, and he would just get sad. He wouldn't be mean back. So I think he got picked on because of that.
Okay.
And around like junior high, first year high school, he, I think, started to feel accepted, which for a kid who has been wrestling with that, I think felt like, wow, like people actually like me. And got into some friendships that were not healthy for him. And we were at that point noticing that he was changing a little bit. And then at age 14, he had a knee surgery, very simple procedure. And he was given a prescription of oxycodone. And this is all kind of now looking back as we go through the timeline. At 14, after that oxycodone, we remember seeing him kind of enjoying being on it, like the third day in, so we took it away. and discussed it, my husband and I. And now knowing what we know as we go back in history and through his things that we didn't see before, he had, I think, started an addiction back then, or started enjoying the high, which turned into vaping, which so many kids are struggling with right now.
Yep.
And then that goes into marijuana, which there's this controversy: is it a gateway drug? Is it not? Which my take on that is always, I tell people, you don't really know if you're just getting marijuana, so it can create an addiction.
Yep.
And so whether that happened to Logan or not, I don't know, but that progressed through his high school years, and it became very destructive in our home. It was tough. We were not the parents that we would just turn a blind eye.
Right.
We were just not, because of my profession, and our morals, and just we had a child at home who was also kind of the good kid, right? So you have these two boys very close in age. One's going kind of the right way, this one's going the wrong way, and a lot of times that happens in families. And sometimes the worst one gets, the better the other gets, and it creates this dynamic. So I think that's what kind of had happened. And so that kind of brings up, Logan up to, graduating high school. He had left the home that last year of high school because he wanted to just kind of be out with his friends. So we let him leave. It was really hard to do. We had gone through, prior year, we had gone through some out-of-state treatment with him. So had many attempts to help him. We had turned over every leaf in the state of Wisconsin to help him. He was in different programs here. And we found a great place in Texas for him for a couple months just to help him, kind of get off the pills. He came back really, really good, and then as soon as he went back to school his senior year, he went downhill. So he had left the home and maintained a relationship with us as best as he could, but with addiction, I think most people understand, if you've experienced it, that it's a very difficult thing to deal with when you're living with someone, because it changes them. It changes them. So the last year he was, so he graduated from high school. Then last year he started his freshman year at UW-Milwaukee, and for us we were like, okay, this is a good fresh start. Let's, hopefully this is kind of like the past, and then new beginning kind of a thing. So we got him all set up in his dorm. Made sure he had everything he needed, and things were going better than I think they had been in the previous year. We were really trying to reconnect with him. He was coming home to do laundry, and my son Caden would pick him up because Logan didn't drive. So we were doing well, really well, which was good. And that kind of brings you up to right after Christmas, was the COVID thing. So that was, I think, hard. We were supposed to celebrate Christmas with him right after Christmas because we were out of town, and he decided not to go. So, but his girlfriend's family had gotten COVID, so we didn't get to see him. And, so he would text us every day. We were in constant communication with him. He texted us on the 13th of February, and he said, "Hey guys, I love you. Happy Saturday." And we both texted back, "We love you too." And then that turned into the 14th, which was Valentine's Day, and we were sitting on our couch Valentine's night and got a phone call. That's kind of the long progression.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
Yep. Keep going.
How did all this affect your other son?
Ooh, that's a big one. Well, on a positive, I will say, because I always like to say positive things, it has made him a very resilient, relentless kid.
Good.
Caden he's out in Arizona for his freshman year of college, which...
Well, that must be hard for you.
Yeah, it was tough, but I told him, because Caden's always so worried about me, I told him, you need to go.
Yep.
I will be okay. And I think it's good for him. And he's actually working on the campus there to try to start something because there's no fentanyl or drug awareness on their campus. So this has empowered him in some ways, which has been great. As a boy growing up through this turmoil that he struggled with, it definitely affected him because he was the kid sitting in his room while we were dealing with, a kid that was creating a lot of turmoil.
Yeah.
And it was hard for him because I think he saw this family that we had, which was a really good family, all the things we did with our kids, and we were close, and he saw that slowly be kind of taken from us. And so I think that created, anger at his brother, very frustrated, very, kind of left out because we were dealing with the difficult kid, which we were forced to deal with. So that was hard, and he's working through that.
That's good.
He's in counseling. He's been in counseling, and he faithfully goes, and he's open with his feelings. He'll call me when he has a hard day. So it's brought us really close, the three of us, which is good. But I also see it strengthening him.
Good.
He is really advocating with his friends not to do drugs, not to try anything. He's had some successful situations where he's gotten a couple kids to flush marijuana down the toilet, because he literally gets to a panic. Kids out there don't understand, when you go through this, if you go through this, you worry about someone that might even put anything in their body, because with Logan, that's what happened.
Right.
Logan didn't want to die.
No, nobody wants to die.
Right. So Caden gets, I think, into a panic when he sees a friend even, it's just a trigger for him. And unfortunately, in freshman year in college, you're around that all the time. You're around drinking, you're around drugs, you're around marijuana, you're around vaping. So he has it in his face all the time.
Yeah.
He had it in his face in high school because he was just a year younger than Logan. So, he kind of had to follow this shadow, which was tough.
Yeah.
Being Logan's brother. It was always Logan's brother, and that was hard for him too. So there's a lot of, damage that was done for him, but I know it's going to be used well. I know God will use it, and, we firmly believe that there's got to be a purpose in all of this.
Let me backtrack a little, and you say you work in the what exactly do you do?
So I'm a licensed clinical therapist in Wisconsin.
Okay.
I have a private practice clinic, so I see clients one-on-one right now through telehealth. I will be going back into an office in Brookfield at some point. So that's what I do. I help people in these situations. I deal with family issues, parents, couples. I've been a clinician for many, many years. So I love what I do, and I feel like it's good because it shows people that even therapists don't have perfect families.
Right.
And I'm really upfront with my clients about that. You can't really get real with a therapist if you feel like they have this perfect image. So, I am pretty transparent that we all have stuff. And, there's no judgment. We all have difficult things.
Yeah, I'm sure. So first of all, I wanted to say I'm so sorry, Erin.
Thank
this
you.
has just happened, less than a year ago, and here you're, talking to us and others about it, about your story, and yeah, just about your, work. I mean, I'm sure you never thought you'd be on the other side of this epidemic. But here you are, really trying to help people. So I just wanted to give you a lot of strength to do that. And I know today you brought a poster board with some of the photos. I think, this is so great because it really brings to people the reality. This is, you were
It's
just
real.
like a family, just like a lot of people who are watching. And, everything, you took vacations and you did all those things. And, it can happen to really anyone. No one is really immune to this.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I have really learned to try to tell people is that this is not a discriminatory thing. Any age, any social class, any race, it's not just bad kids that this happens to. It's not like that anymore. Addiction used to be, or trying drugs used to be, you don't try drugs because you don't want your kids to get addicted. And now it's becoming, which is the message I really want to put out there, is that you don't want your kids to try drugs because they could die. Because everything's being laced. Even marijuana is being laced. Drug dealers want kids hooked. So that's what lines their pockets with money. And so if they mix a little bit of this or a little bit of that into even marijuana, these kids think, oh, that's really good marijuana, I'm going to keep going back. And what it does is it's creating an addiction for something else that they just think they're just smoking marijuana. And marijuana can be so condoned by many people, even parents. And I think all we ever really tried to do was fight Logan to not do drugs, which in the end was sad, because everything we tried to do was to prevent exactly what happened.
Right.
So.
And without going into, you can decide how much detail you want to share, but
Sure.
I know you said that he was into some marijuana and he had been into pills. Do you know what the actual situation was? That, was it a bad supply of one or the other?
Yep. From what we know, yes. He was not having a good night that night. There was a situation with a girlfriend, a very new girlfriend. We didn't even know her. They were fighting, and they were on FaceTime for about 5 hours that night. She was out of town, and I think that's one of the reasons he was upset. It was because he had told us that he was not happy that she was out of town for Valentine's Day. And anyone who knows Logan knows that he's, I think I had mentioned it to you too, Chris, like he was just so soft. He was a sensitive kid, and any friend now will say, one of the things that they say when they hear the Logan is he was the nicest kid. He was just a nice kid. And so he was really hurting that night. I had not talked to him that night. I talked to him earlier in the day, but so the girlfriend and him were fighting. They were on FaceTime for about 5 hours. He was in his dorm, and, from what she had told us, he was not in a good state. She said he was really upset at me. I didn't get into details with why. I don't blame her for it, and she said he did take a pill while they were on FaceTime, and a few minutes later he started to fall asleep, and then he started to snore, which was actually him dying, and she didn't know that. But if you research fentanyl overdose, or poisoning, I like to call it poisoning because it really is a poisoning. One of the first signs is your airways, the snoring, because your airways are closing up. Yeah. So that kind of created for me a few things about speaking out. Number one, if you don't know the signs of fentanyl overdose, you're going to hang up the phone, which is what she did, and just assumed he was sleeping. But if you backtrack, and if kids would understand what these signs are, and knowing he was not in a good state, knowing he had already taken something, if she would have known some of those things and been educated, may she have called 911?
Right.
The police department was right downstairs from his dorm. Could they have gotten there in time? And so I think it's so important for kids and families to be aware of this epidemic and how to respond to it, because Logan's life could have been saved.
Right, yes. So much education that we can do, not only to prevent it, but just the harm reduction, as we call it, to make people aware of the signs of overdose and, how you can save a life and things like that. But I wanted to make sure Chris got in her question before we talked about any
Most
of
of
that.
them you've already answered. What else would you like to tell us about?
I think one of the biggest things that is so important for people to understand or to feel is that it's okay to speak out if you have a struggling child. There's such shame as a parent, like, oh, my kid's doing drugs or wrestling with vaping or whatever it is. So I think it becomes kind of a hidden thing because there's a shame attached with it. Because what do moms do? We make it all better. We fix things. That's what parents are supposed
And
to
we blame
do.
ourselves.
And so the first thing that happens, is internally you're like, what can I do differently? How can I change this? And so as this happened in our family, and we made I mean, I spent my whole last 5 years trying to save this kid. And so I think, you know, the evidence to me at the end was that I couldn't save him, which also means I didn't cause it.
Right, right.
Because you can't, if you can't save him, you know you would have. If you don't have the power to do that, you don't have the power to cause it either. And so that shame has to be detached somehow. Are there kids out there who do these things and have bad families? Of course. But there's so much going on with fentanyl and these drugs being laced. These kids don't know what they're taking. The pills look exactly the same.
Yep.
You go buy a pill or you get a pill from a friend at school and it looks like an oxycodone or it looks like a Xanax, and it may or may not be.
Yep.
You have no proof. And so what I would want to educate parents is that you have an ongoing conversation, not just a one-time talk, ongoing conversation from age 10, 11 and on about what can happen, you know, connecting it with real life stories like ours, because I think parents just don't know, and they don't think it's happening that early, and it is.
Yeah.
There's kids all over age 10, 11, 12 vaping at school and trying things. There's 13, 14-year-olds who've died from fentanyl just their first time at a sleepover.
Yeah, I know. Like the DEA's program, one pill can kill.
It's so serious, and so I just feel it's so important to do everything that I can do to speak out and to share and to do whatever I can to save. I know I've already saved kids.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Erin, for doing this.
How are you doing yourself?
I'm doing okay. It's hard. I think people think, well, it's been almost a year. Are you better? No.
No, you'll never be better.
Even my happiest times have sadness. I miss him so much. There's still times of shock. You know, where you'd be walking in the house and having a really somewhat good day, and you see his picture and you go, oh my gosh, that's right, he's gone. So those kinds of things happen. There's a lot of triggers, but we're doing okay. You know, we really lean on our faith, which is very important to us. I do believe there's a reason. I don't know what that all means yet, but I want to make sure that Logan's death is used to save others. And, you know, there's this little part that I think helps my husband, Rick, and I. It's kind of our saving grace. At the end of the day, we think, well, he was taken on Valentine's Day. That could be such a horrible tragedy if you look at it that way.
Right.
How sad. Oh my gosh, Valentine's Day. Like, how awful. And we have really tried with Caden, our other son, and just with us to try to remember and set our minds differently and say he was taken on the day of love.
Yep.
And he was saved. He was rescued. And that is really, truly, Chris, what gets me through every day. It really is just remembering he was saved. We don't know what his life would have looked like, you know, if he would have continued to live. And he's, as far as I'm concerned, in the best place he could possibly be with no pain.
Correct.
So that helps me every day.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah.
So what will you do now?
Well, keep speaking. You know, right now, another, I don't know if I think you had known another woman who had lost her son at
Yeah, I think
UWM.
you told me
Yes,
about him, yeah.
Michelle. So we have connected. I reached out to her when I found out her son had passed at UWM, and we ended up figuring out that our sons died in the same dorm.
Oh, wow.
Which was kind of like, wow, this is a powerful story.
Yeah.
You know, 9 months later after Logan's death, Kate, her son, died. And so her and I are working pretty close together to speak out. We have met with UW President Tommy Thompson, who is going to be trying to help work with us and help get all 13 UW schools to get Narcan in the dorms.
Good.
I really, really want these colleges to have posters up And it sounds so minuscule, but it's not, because when kids see things, it's implanted in their brain.
They're visual.
They're visual. And if they see a poster of a real pill and a fake pill, and maybe Logan's picture on it, and Michelle's son Cade's picture on it, and a warning, and they're in elevators and bathrooms and hallways and dorms, if they see that enough over and over and over, I always think, will that make one kid at one point look at a pill and say, I'm not going to do it? I remember seeing that poster.
Yeah.
And so it's simple stuff like that, and it could get way more complicated into major training, which I think needs to happen as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But former Governor Tommy Thompson's really been very responsive to the UW staff. There is helping, and we're working on getting programs in place. And UWM has actually really responded to our
That's good.
us as well, and they're doing some things, and we're going to be speaking there in March, I think, in a forum there with kids, and they're doing some training, coffee with a cop. So they're responding as well. So I don't know what the big picture looks like. How far will this go? What will it be? I don't know that. I just feel like I'm walking by faith, and if our story can share with anyone else's, anybody I come in contact with that says, "Oh, I know someone who that just happened to," my first words are, "Give them my number." Whatever they need.
Yeah, you need a support group,
You bet.
and there aren't very many. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, this is just a book we just had made. So it's just some cool pictures of Logan. This is probably one of my favorites. It just captures our family.
Nice.
When, we really, really were a happy family. Obviously not a perfect family.
Nobody's got a perfect
No,
family.
there is no perfect family, but he was a happy kid. We did so many things.
Now, which one is him?
So this is Logan.
Okay.
And that's Caden. But we did camping trips and, Arizona every year. Lots of, this one's really cool, actually. So this captures, if you can see, this is Logan. Caden's on the bridge, and my husband is trying to convince Logan to get on the bridge. It captures the anxiety that he wrestled with.
Okay.
Like, he couldn't even do things like that. He actually did at that day make it about halfway.
So you think the anxiety itself is what
Oh yeah.
pushed him into the drugs?
I think it did, but I think a big part of it was the acceptance. He finally found acceptance with those kids.
Okay.
And I think a lot of those kids were good kids. They were just not doing the right thing too,
Right.
and that pulled him in, and he felt popular.
Okay.
And what does every kid want,
To be popular.
right? Our parents are supposed to love us. He had acceptance at home, but we're supposed to love kids, so it doesn't feel as voluntary to them.
Right.
So when they get acceptance from friends, it feels so good. And if they don't, it feels so bad. And Logan, I do believe, found like his popularity in this.
Yeah.
His funeral was packed, with kids, and he affected so many kids. And I think some of them have changed. I think some of them are still wrestling with things. I know of a few for sure who stopped doing any drugs. But I do believe the social thing is really what drew him in and kept him there.
Okay.
And it became a turmoil because his family wasn't okay with that. So it was kind of like, I want this life and I want this life, and those two lives, they don't go together.
Yeah.
And so he wrestled with that.
Okay.
But yeah, this was just kind of a fun book. I just tried to capture lots of moments. The other thing I always remember that people remember about Logan is he loved cats. We have cats at home, and he was an animal lover, and he would, right up until the week he passed, he would always text Rick and I, and he would say, "Send me a picture of Pete." We had a text thread, a family text thread, just for sending pictures of the cats back and forth, because he really missed home and missed the cats a lot. So he was a lover of animals. It just was very soothing for him.
Well, thank you for being with us
Thank
today.
you
Anything
so
else you want?
much. Yes. Well, I was just glad to hear that you're working really at the big systems level. I think that's exactly
Yep.
what we need, some big campaigns. But just, systematic distribution of Narcan, I think that is going to be really helpful. And also just, it raises awareness, but decreases the stigma of just how prevalent this is. Because we can't prevent everything. So, if there are people, of course there are people who are, have substance use issues.
Right.
We want to make sure we can save lives.
Yeah.
And so, even something like, don't always use with someone or something like that.
Yeah.
And knowing the signs, like you're saying, of overdose, I think can go a long ways.
Oh, absolutely, and knowing how to respond.
And knowing how to respond.
There's
exactly.
laws that protect these kids for if they call, right away. There's laws that protect them, amnesty laws and Good Samaritan laws in the state of Wisconsin that protect them. So if they call, they don't have to be worried about getting in trouble. And the day that we had heard that Logan passed, he passed in the morning. They didn't get in touch with anybody police-wise till the evening. And a couple of the people I've spoke with have said they were all worried about getting Logan in trouble if they had drugs in the room or themselves getting in trouble. And that probably wouldn't have saved Logan because he was already gone. But I think moving forward, these kids need to know, this needs to be marketed. These kids need to understand there's things in place to protect them, and make the call. Don't wait, make the call.
Yeah.
It's a life. And if they could get a couple doses of Narcan, there are many kids who can be saved.
Right, exactly. So, well, thank you so much for doing that. So, I know I'm with the Jefferson County Drug-Free Coalition, and I'm sure there are several in the Milwaukee area and probably, maybe near Pewaukee where you live. Do you think you'll be working with any of those organizations?
I don't know, but I hope to do whatever I can. I've spoken with 2 different individuals from the DEA, one in Washington and then one in the Chicago division. So they're very aware that I'm ready and willing to work and to do whatever I can, whether it's with my profession or on a personal level. I don't think there's enough people out there that are transparent enough about the struggles that they have in families. And so I think that just needs to be more widespread. And if I can help make a difference that way, I will do it.
Yes, you'll definitely make a difference. Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank
Sorry
you.
for your loss.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for sharing our story and for sharing your story, and for making a difference.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Open our hearts, free every soul. The fear inside, you must let it go. Oh, that monster, before it conquers you. Yeah, we all have demons, we fight every day. You get knocked down, but the bell hasn't rang, so keep going. Just stay focused when life seems hopeless. Before life passes you by, you must, like a bird with broken wings always. You've gotta reach for the stars. It might seem far. Ooh, don't stop. You gotta try. Oh, 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 you gotta try. Never stop dreaming, even away. Nothing can stop you from winning this race, so keep going. Just stay focused. Yeah, I am the tiger, I own the prize. Every storm is with the rainbow in the sky. You are golden. If no one else noticed, don't stop, keep going. Before life passes you by, you must, like a bird with broken wings always. You gotta reach for the stars. It might seem far. Ooh, don't stop. You gotta try. Oh, 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 you gotta try. You gotta try. All you got to do is try. Oh, you gotta 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 try. You gotta try. All you got to do is try. You gotta try.
I think the biggest piece of advice I have for someone going through addiction or thinking about going to rehab is being honest with yourself. Don't be afraid to get help. I think that's the biggest stigma that we're trying to erase is don't be afraid to ask for help.